It began with a whisper in the marble halls of Rome. The coffers are empty. Few took it seriously, yet those words would echo across the empire for decades. Gaius Valerius, a diligent imperial accountant, had noticed a troubling pattern. Taxation rates had soared to unprecedented levels, strangling farmers, merchants, and soldiers alike. The empire's lifeblood, its people, were bleeding gold into the hands of the state, leaving themselves destitute. The antagonist was clear yet elusive. The Roman bureaucracy itself, bloated and greedy, obsessed with funding military campaigns, public spectacles, and lavish palaces. Oversight was weak, and the system rewarded cunning officials over competence. Meanwhile, the elite shielded themselves from the crushing levies, deepening inequality and sowing resentment. The era was one of ostentation and decay. The empire spanned continents, its economy a complex web of coins, taxes, and tribute. Yet beneath the grandeur, cracks were forming. Provinces whispered of rebellion, markets began to stagnate, soldiers grumbled about unpaid wages. Rome, it seemed, was taxing not just its citizens, but its very future. Gaius sensed the storm approaching, though no one could yet imagine its scale. Something beneath the surface was about to collapse, and when it did, the empire would pay a price that even gold could not cover. Gaius pored over the ledgers again, his brow furrowed. The numbers didn't add up. Provinces reported record surpluses, yet the treasury remained perilously low. Forged tax receipts and creative accounting hid the truth. Governors and tax collectors were padding their own pockets while Rome's backbone, its citizens, crumbled under impossible levies. Whispers began to circulate in the forum. Merchants claimed they were forced into secret agreements to avoid confiscation. Soldiers murmured about irregular pay. Senators nervously glanced at audits they dared not read. Some officials whispered of insider deals with grain merchants. Others hinted at phantom contracts with foreign suppliers. Rome's financial machinery groaned under the weight of deception, but the betrayal was murky. Was it simple incompetence or deliberate corruption? The markets felt the tension. Prices of essentials fluctuated wildly as provincial harvests failed to meet their expected tribute. Gold coins became scarce, bartering returned to villages. Even the wealthy began to hedge, hiding their fortunes in safe estates or foreign treasuries. Gaius sensed that these cracks were more than isolated errors. The very system that had built the empire was feeding its undoing, and the storm of fiscal collapse was quietly gathering, ready to repeat history's harshest lessons. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. A daring scriba, an imperial clerk with a conscience, smuggled documents to Gaius, exposing a labyrinth of embezzlement and deceit. Entire provinces had been reporting false revenues, while governors siphoned gold into secret vaults. Contracts for grain, weapons, and infrastructure had been rigged. Merchants colluded with officials, inflating prices and pocketing the difference. Rome's economy had been systematically drained from within. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Soldiers went unpaid for months. Revolts simmered in far-flung provinces, and markets froze as confidence evaporated. Citizens rioted when they discovered the levies they had paid faithfully had vanished into corrupt hands. Merchants went bankrupt overnight. Guilds shuttered their workshops. Even the Senate, long complicit, found itself paralyzed, its authority shattered. Trust, once the bedrock of the empire, crumbled like fragile parchment. The betrayal was not merely fiscal, it was moral, a wound deep in Rome's very identity. As Gaius studied the papers, he realized the stakes. Exposing this corruption could topple powerful men and destabilize the state further. Justice, if it came, would not be swift, and revenge, if sought, would have to be calculated. The empire teetered on the edge, and all eyes now turned to him. Could one man confront the rot at the heart of Rome? Gaius could no longer stand idle. The weight of Rome's betrayal pressed on him, but now it fueled determination rather than despair. He began tracing the money trails, following each gilded coin from provincial treasuries to the private vaults of governors and merchants. Every forged receipt, every inflated contract, every secret ledger pointed to a shocking truth. The rot was not an accident. It was systemic, driven by ego, ambition, and greed. He realized that Rome's financial collapse was not only a matter of numbers, but of human nature. The empire had built itself on trust, hierarchy, and loyalty, but those pillars were fragile when confronted by avarice. Behind every ledger, a person had chosen self-interest over duty. Behind every decree, ambition had overridden justice. Gaius made his move. He began compiling a dossier so damning it could shake the Senate and the emperor himself. Letters, receipts, witness testimonies, all meticulously documented. For the first time, he felt the spark of revenge and restoration. The empire might have teetered on the brink, but now the fight had a face. Rome's silent guardian, armed not with swords, but with truth. The battle had begun. The collapse was no longer inevitable. It could be confronted, challenged, and perhaps reversed. Gaius worked in the shadows, methodically assembling the evidence that could bring Rome's corrupt elite to their knees. He traced the money trails across provinces, mapping embezzlement networks that stretched from Alexandria to Gaul. Each coin led him closer to the architects of the collapse, men who still strutted through the Senate believing themselves untouchable. He orchestrated a careful leak of documents to trusted scribes in Rome, ensuring the information reached key magistrates and honest merchants without alerting the perpetrators. Simultaneously, he set up a subtle sting operation. Contracts were rewritten with hidden clauses, forcing greedy governors and merchants into traps where their schemes would be exposed in plain view. Every day, Gaius felt the pulse of danger. One misstep and the elite could crush him, labeling him a traitor or rebel. Yet he pressed on, knowing that Rome's survival depended on confronting the rot at its core. The city's gossip mills began to stir. Whispers of mismanaged gold and fraudulent levies seeped into the forums. The villains, confident in their power, laughed off rumors. But Gaius's plan was already in motion. Justice was coming, though it had yet to strike. The first domino was poised to fall. The Senate chamber was packed, every marble column a silent witness to Rome's unraveling. Gaius stepped forward, dossier in hand, the culmination of months of relentless investigation. He began reading aloud the ledgers, letters, and testimonies, each revelation slicing through the veneer of imperial authority. Governors, once untouchable, squirmed under the weight of undeniable proof. Embezzlement, forged tax records, and secret hoards amassed while citizens starved. Merchants who had manipulated prices and levies were exposed, their reputations shredded. Even the emperor's advisors could not ignore the catastrophic web of greed that had hollowed out the empire's coffers. Outside the forum, markets faltered as whispers turned to roars. Gold and grain prices plunged in a shockwave of panic and clarity. The conspirators' laughter had died. Faces once smug with impunity were now etched with fear. Rome itself seemed to pause, acknowledging the truth that could no longer be hidden. As Gaius closed the dossier, a hush fell. Justice had been delivered, not with swords, but with truth and unmasking, leaving a stain on the guilty that would linger for generations. The empire had been shaken, its rot exposed, and the people finally saw the betrayal that had cost them their wealth and peace that Rome's streets whispered of ruin. Palaces once brimming with opulence were abandoned, vaults emptied, and titles stripped from those who had hoarded wealth at the empire's expense. The villainous advisors and corrupt governors were disgraced, their names etched into history as symbols of greed's destructive power. Markets slowly stabilized, yet the scars of betrayal lingered: grain shortages, unpaid soldiers, and shattered citizen trust. Gaius, the diligent investigator, withdrew from the public eye. He did not seek glory, only the quiet satisfaction of having exposed the truth. His legacy became the ledger of accountability, a reminder that even empires built on might and gold were vulnerable to human folly. History, as ever, remembered both the lesson and the cost. Unchecked greed erodes even the grandest structures, and power without transparency sows collapse. Yet, civilizations still stumble on the same mistakes, as if wealth alone blinds reason. And so, the poetic justice of Rome resonates across the ages. Gold can glitter, but truth will always weigh heavier. Viewers, reflect on this. Do you think greed always gets caught? Share your thoughts below, subscribe, and join us as we uncover more hidden financial betrayals that shaped our world.